Sometimes when you want to have small bits of a second color on your knitting, it's not worth the effort of trying to knit those stitches in the alternate color. And so a technique called duplicate stitch can be used. And this is actually a type of embroidery. So I've got the color that I want to embroider threaded on a tapestry needle, and I've got a piece of knitting. Usually duplicate stitch is worked on stockinette stitch, and that's what I've got here. So I'm going to look for the stitch I want to embroider, and I'm going to bring my working needle up from the back and come up right at the tip of the V at the bottom of the stitch. And so you might miss the first time and poke around a little bit till you get it to come up the right place. And it'll be just right between those strands of yarn at the bottom of a stitch. And now I'm going to try to create a duplicate of that stitch. And you can see the stitch goes up here and behind the two strands of the stitch above it. So that's what I'm going to do with my tapestry needle. And I'm going to pull it through. And then I go back down with my tapestry needle right into the hole where I originally came out. And you can see that I've created a green stitch right in the middle of my rust knitting. And now I can do multiple stitches in the same way. So say I want to do the stitch right above the one I did. I just find that place to come up right in the bottom of that stitch again. And I go through the two strands, underneath the two strands of the stitch above it, pull the yarn through, and go back down where I came up. And by doing this, you can add small areas of color to your knitting. You can do it next to the stitch, you can do it diagonal, you can come up for the next stitch anywhere you like. Usually you'll have a charted pattern that shows you the stitches that would be in a different color. Sometimes the pattern will tell you to work it in duplicate stitch, and sometimes the pattern will give you a choice or may say that it's knitted in, but you just decide you don't want to knit it in. You can see it's quite a simple thing to add small bits of color to your knitting with this technique. I've worked all my stitches here with the same color, but you could easily have areas with multiple colors as well. So very, very useful technique for small areas of color.